I guess you get to a point though with this where we are now, and you know, with the net zero agenda, we're very much tuned in to the fact that we are going to need to decarbonise buildings. And I'm sure that this building, with it having been designed when it was designed with gas boilers and so on. Do you have sort of an architect's view on how this building, although being sort of brought to completion during this year, how do you see things changing in that space? Do you think it will be a life cycle led decision? Do you think there'll be any ways in which this building can adapt ahead of time?
Well, I should just say that it's BREEAM excellent, according to 2014. So we caught up with BREEAM 3 times, and 2014 is the one that we measure against. Excellent for the buildings along Bond Street, New Bond Street, and the one above the station. The 300-year-old building is very good, BREEAM, so that's pretty cool. And I think we're Code for Sustainable Homes 4 for the apartments, which are in another refurbished and reconstituted building. So, you know, we did the best we could. We got PVs on the roof. We even tried, with some success, I would say, it was early days, with piles, ground source cooling piles in the around the station. So that was quite pioneering.
So, Alex, the Hanover development, in order to sort of talk to the growing rhetoric around the task force for nature-related financial disclosure, or recommendations rather, we've also got this sort of London theme of greening the skyline. We've got words that I'm sure those watching will connect with around biodiversity, around the net gain, around nature positive, and just generally how this building connects with nature. Would you take me through just a few examples of where you see the Hanover development talking to each of those points?
Yeah, I think it's in the centre of London, centre of Mayfair. But the huge advantages are that Hanover Square's been re-landscaped, not as part of our project, but as an associated project because of the way in which the station exits onto the square. The west side of Hanover Square has been calmed, so there's no traffic, reduction of pollution. There's much more planting there, and then there's a route through with a square in the middle of the development called Medici Courtyard, which has got 5 trees in it. It's got bird boxes, it's got sort of bat boxes. There are terraces with green above the offices on New Bond Street, and above the flats, above and to the side of the flats on Brook Street. So there's a lot of green on the roofscape, and there's a lot of green at ground floor in a very dense urban block. So I think we've done pretty well. I think the other thing is this enjoyment of nature. So it's partly about the green, it's partly about creating calm. It's quiet. There's much fewer cars, and the opportunity then, we all saw when COVID hit and the traffic stopped, we could hear birdsong. Whether that's because we could hear it and it was always there, or because there was more, I don't know. But there's certainly it's a calm, quiet, beautiful enclave where you can actually see nature and be in it. And so I think it's pretty good.
I mean, that's fascinating. We talk about the E in ESG, the impact, thinking about that within the design. We've spoken a little bit around the S and how the building is going to interact within its local community. We've touched on amenity and walkability. We're now seeing just, I guess, the rise of available green certifications or green building certifications out there. One of which, obviously, by virtue of planning, BREEAM, was the building was sort of developed with that in mind as a stipulation. What others do you feel now? What sort of other aspects of building certification do you see this building taking on? Or do you see that as the role of others to really sort of take this building from the architects, from the builders, from the design company, and give it its new lease of life in a world that interacts with investors and occupiers?
I should mention the role of engineers, absolutely essential to understanding how buildings perform, both structurally and environmentally. I have to say I find it all very complicated. I find that we need possibly to go through a period of rationalisation because things are so in so many different camps, and there are so many interest groups, whether it's fire or green space or energy or walkability or embodied carbon. All of those things can work together, but quite often they're fighting each other. So I'll give you an example. The forthcoming BS 9991 fire regulations, is driving people towards what, 2 cores for every building. Some of the buildings we're talking about wouldn't have passed that test. So does that mean they're going to be second-rate, second-tier buildings? 2 cores on a relatively small building is a lot of additional embodied energy, a lot less efficiency. Is that now? Of course, safety is paramount, but we have to set certain limits, because we can have the safest buildings in the world and the planet can burn, or we can have slightly less safe buildings and the planet can be. So I think that's they're tough choices. You cannot have everything. So we're going to have to sort of sit down amongst all of ourselves. Your end of the the marketing side, the ESG side, the understanding of what occupiers want, the occupiers themselves, the planners, the London plan now includes fire safety, which is a sort of slightly I'm not sure that that's where it should be. So I suppose what I'm saying is everybody wants everything to be perfect, and the reality is it isn't going to be perfect, and certainly not if you want to save the planet at the same time. So we'll have to find a way to put all those things together and find the optimum connection between all of them to get the best result.